to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And first, before we even talk about that Philadelphia Union game, I want to say thank you to everybody who tuned in to the last episode with myself and Jem. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that episode. I know I did, and hopefully that gave you a pretty good introduction into the type of guy Jem is. And I would absolutely love to have him on the podcast a lot more. But, there's just one teeny tiny issue, that 5-hour time difference. So if anybody can get Jem a job in the subway system anywhere in America, I think he would take. Hit him up, let him know, and he'll move over to America, and then we can do the podcast together. But again, like I said, thank you to everybody who listened to the podcast, who gave feedback, and it makes me happy that you guys enjoy that episode. So I know it's not typical of me to give you episodes with a guest. It's normally just myself, just like this episode, but for the most part, you guys seem to like when I have guests on the podcast, so that makes me happy if you guys are happy. But this game, oh my God, against Atlanta United. What a crazy game. What a crazy, crazy, crazy game. And we have a lot to talk about with that game. A lot of different sound bites to play. I think we have 4 lined up from Jim Curtin. 1 before the game and then 3 after the game. So a lot to get to with Jim Curtin's thoughts on a whole bunch of different topics from this game. And then we'll go over our 3 stars. And if time permits, maybe blunder of the week. But without further ado, let's get straight into the news. All right, so only 2 points, and both of them are centered around the Philadelphia Union. So last episode, obviously, I didn't do news. I feel like there was probably a lot of news we should have got to last episode. We did not, because that episode just went way too long, so I decided to cut out the news. And we have 2 points. Number 1, Kai Wagner earns a spot in Matchday 9 for Team of the Matchday after his goal and stellar performance against Atlanta United. And this is 4 straight weeks now that the Union have had at least one player included in Team of the Matchday. Former Philadelphia Union goalkeeper Matt Freese was also on that list with his 6 saves against New England in New York City's 2-0 victory. And I also believe this is Matt's 2nd time this season. He's having a hell of a season with New York City. And as much as you may hate New York City, which is fair, I think it's important, to watch just former Union Academy players do well, former Union players do well. And we all know that if Matt Freese would have stuck around, he would have been stuck behind Andre Blake, and he wouldn't be getting the opportunities that he's getting right now with New York City. So as much as it's the wrong team, it's the right team for him because he's getting opportunities, and he's showing why New York City was interested in trading for him in the first place. And so there is news point number 1. And then we're going to go ahead and talk about the Philadelphia Union on the verge of making even more history. That was Daniel Gazdag and Julian Carranza are amongst the elite scoring duos in league history, as they're tied with Javinko and Josie Altidore of Toronto FC as the most games scored in by 2 teammates with 15. Also on that list, which was pretty interesting, was also Daniel Gazdag and Mikael Uhre at 11. And to have all 3 of those players on this list is just really, really, really special. And to see the likes of Sebastian Javinko, Josie Altidore, Diego Rossi, Carlos Vela, those 4 players right there. LAFC and Toronto spent so much money bringing those players to their clubs. And then when the players are at the clubs, they're paying them crazy DP money. And it's just, I think, a testament to the Union scouting first and foremost to be able to identify a player like Julian Carranza, which credit has to be given to Inter Miami for finding him in Argentina. but it was the right player, wrong system. And the Union, to Ernst Tanner's credit, was able to pull off that trade to bring Julian to Philadelphia Union, knew that this player was talented, took advantage of, Inter Miami having to shave the roster. And Julian's been a godsend to this club. Do you think the Union are going to ever pay $6 million for a player? Because that's what Julian costs Inter Miami? Absolutely not. But the Union take advantage of, Miami not living up to the rules and having to get rid of players. And it was the right player, the right fit when Julian came to the Union. But then Daniel Gazdag playing in Hungary. How many people were paying attention to that league? Not a lot. We see Daniel Gazdag on the verge of overtaking Sebastian Letou for the all-time leading goal scorer of the club. Mikael Uhre, for as much hate as he gets, scores a big goal in this game against Atlanta. He's been consistent. 13 goals in his first season with the Union, 9 goals last season. Yes, a DP striker, you want him to score more goals. You want him to be involved more in this attack. But the chemistry that Daniel Gazdag, Julian Carranza, and Mikael Uhre have all built in 3 years, has it been now? 3 years, yeah. It's been fascinating to watch. And you guys would know this the last couple seasons because I feel like I've plugged this so much. But the Union the last 2 years have had the highest scoring trio in MLS with those 3 players. You go ahead and look in 2022, 49 goals scored between the 3 of those players. In 2023, last season, 37 goals scored between the 3 of them. That's back-to-back seasons that these 3 guys have led MLS as the highest scoring trio. And that's so important. Yes, you want to see one of these guys score 20-plus goals. Yes, we saw Daniel Gazdag do that 2 years ago. And it's important to have players score a lot of goals. But I think it's just as important, if not more important, to have multiple players score goals where you're not just relying on one player. Because teams are going to game plan against that one player and try to shut them out to get them to get touches outside of the box. You see the Union do that all the time. You saw them do that against Hani Mukhtar. You saw them do it this past weekend against Thiago Almada. And yes, Almada still hurt the Union. He got an assist. Beautiful ball sent into Daniel Rios, and we'll talk about that play here in a second. But it's super impressive that the Union find different ways to score. It's just not, all right, let's feed Julian Carranza the ball and hope that he leads us to victory. No, they're getting goals from multiple positions. You saw that in this game. Kai Wagner gets his first goal of the season. And so having multiple players that can beat you is what's going to make this team deadly. What's going to make this team go on a run. It's what made them go on a run in 2022 because they're getting goals from other players. On the bench, you bring in Corey Burke, and he's giving you a couple goals. What was it? 6, 7, 8 goals I think he scored during that season off the bench. Really impressive numbers from Corey Burke. And you can argue, well, the Union don't really have that player right now on the bench. But I would argue that player is Alejandro Bedoya. Yes, he's not that striker that you would want, but you see what it does to this team offensively. The link-up play on the right-hand side, the assists, the cutbacks. It's kind of a El Seno-esque role. And so I know that's a long-winded rant to lead up to our first clip. I asked Jim Curtin before the Atlanta game, MLS put out that stat that I just read you guys. What does that say about your scouting? That they can find these type of players? And I asked him a second part. I said, do you feel like those 3 players are a little bit underrated in MLS? He opted not to answer that question. But to my point about the scouting and the performance that they're getting out of these 3 players, this is what he had to say.
Efficiency is the most important on the field, right? You can spend whatever you want, but it's been proven time and time again in this league. Money does not guarantee anything. It doesn't guarantee a player to be perfect on the field. There's plenty of 5, 8, 10, even $15 million players in this league that have not worked out. So finding the right player for your club is something that's important. I think our scouting department does a great job in that. Those tandems are really, really talented. Obviously, when you talk about Mikael, Daniel, and Julian, it's a front 3 that gives teams a lot of problems. It's pretty incredible that quickly they gelled together and are like you said, towards the top in terms of a duo scoring goals. So yeah, great players. Great players tend to understand each other. And again, you could easily put a spreadsheet together that, whether it's the U22 initiative, the designated player, the TAM guys, there's still going to be mistakes always at clubs, but we try to minimize those as much as possible. So again, those two guys coming in a really creative way with Julian, and good scouting to find Danny Gazdag, who translated really quickly and well to MLS. Speaks to that efficiency. They have efficiency on the field for sure, but we have efficiency with the players that we scout and recruit and bring in. And there's a reason, we value certain statistics and data, and we're drawn towards those types of players.
Yeah, and has every transfer been a hit by the Union? No, absolutely not. But more times than not, Ernst Tanner has hit. And you would argue that his biggest hit so far this season has been Oliver Zemla. Who would have saw that coming? Absolutely nobody. And you hope the Union could be a little bit more active in the summertime, because it does feel like we thought last year the window had closed on this team to go and fight for MLS Cup. They decided to run it back. Now the question remains, do the Union keep Julian Carranza through the summertime? Do they sell him if a good enough offer comes in? We shall see. But if the Union continue to play this well into the summer window, you've got to invest more into the team. You've got to look at a backup 10, a backup striker, I would argue. Can you make an argument that, yeah, maybe a backup left back? Absolutely, with Isaiah LaFleur out with an ACL injury, which happened at the beginning of the season. Matt Real definitely is not getting any starts anytime soon. Maybe that's all you need is two positions right there, backup striker and backup 10. But I think, we want to see how serious this team is, because the starting lineup, when they're on, they're on. And they'll go toe-to-toe with anybody in MLS. I truly believe that. We saw that in 2022. But it's just that little piece, that little spark that they're missing off the bench. And so you hope that the Union correct that this summer. But as we all know, the Union aren't going to spend millions upon millions of dollars to bring in those type of players. And like Jim said, we've seen over the years, $1 million players flopping in MLS. Big star players flopping in MLS. And time again, the Union have proven that their way is the right way to do it. Bring in these players that nobody's ever heard of. These players that are playing in second and third divisions in Europe, around the world. Because some of those players turn out to be the Union's very best players. But that's it for the news segment. Let's get to this Atlanta United versus Philadelphia Union game. As we all know, ended 2-2. And, I'll be honest. I liked what I saw from the Union in the first half compared to last weekend in Nashville. Lots of really good combination play on the right-hand side between Bedoya, Harriel, and Gazdag. Gazdag had that chance in the 9th minute, I believe it was, where Harriel plays that cutback pass to him. The ball gets caught under Gazdag's foot a little bit. Not a great first touch with his right foot. Takes a second touch with his right to set him up on his left. And by the time that he gets the ball to his left, he goes to have that shot, and it gets blocked. But that's a good moment in this game. 9 minutes into the game, and all right, you see the Union actually not just sending a long ball down and hoping for the best. No, you see build-up play on the right-hand side. Bedoya doesn't see anything going forward, so he cuts the ball back to Harriel, and then Harriel makes his forward run because he passes back to Bedoya. Bedoya with a good pass into Daniel Gazdag, first time pass by Gazdag into Harriel. And then Harriel has that cutback pass to Daniel. That's good play right there. We see in the 31st minute, I believe it was, where it seemed like there was a million Union chances there. You have the Union breaking on the counter with Julian Carranza. Good combination play, again, on the right-hand side between Quinn Sullivan and Bedoya. Bedoya plays that cutback pass to Carranza, whose shot then gets blocked. The ball falls to Quinn Sullivan. His shot also gets blocked. The ball winds up getting reset and eventually winds up with Kai Wagner crossing the ball into Alejandro Bedoya, who has a free header, gets saved by Brad Guzan. That moment, somebody should have scored, and the Union should have been up 1-0 in the first half. You look at how the Union attacked, and you compare it, like I said last week, It's much better. This is what the Union should have been doing last weekend in Nashville. I know. Why are you complaining about a game that the Union ultimately won, Todd? I know. I hear you. But go back and listen to that episode if you want to hear my rant why Jem and I didn't agree that that was the right approach to the game by the Union in Nashville. Ultimately works out, and Jim Curtin doesn't care what the critics have to say, The game plan worked. The Union came away with all 3 points, and that's all what matters. But this first half against Atlanta, you have players actually moving, finding space, being an option. And what we really saw in the first half is this team can play some beautiful soccer if they really want to. They can string together some passes. It's quick passing, quick movement. And when it comes together, it's beautiful to watch. It's a high risk, high reward system. Jim Curtin said that so many times the last couple of years that you guys are probably tired of hearing it. But some of the passing we saw in the first half wasn't high risk. It was just good movement off the ball. Players are hitting their passes. It's quick passing. Atlanta's a little bit caught off guard because of how quickly the Union are moving this ball. And when the Union are playing that type of soccer, yeah, it's enjoyable to watch. Yeah, we all love watching the Union be direct and play that long ball and hit on the counterattack. But when they actually build up, man, we saw some beautiful stuff in the first half. And it's a shame that the Union weren't able to capitalize and get a goal. That's the only thing that would have been made it better. Because if the Union would have scored, I think a lot of people would have been talking about that on social media. And one thing that I might say that gets lost in the first half is Atlanta only had 6 shots, and only 2 of those shots came inside the 18-yard box. That's a huge job that the Union did defensively to clear crosses out of the box, forcing Atlanta to shoot from distance. And it wasn't like it was just outside the 18-yard box. We're talking shots from 25 plus yards away. The Union did a really good job with Jose Martinez tracking Thiago Almada, taking him out of the game in the first part. Good job with the Union center backs, Damion Lowe and Jacob Glesnes, who we'll get to in a little bit here, talking about their performances. But I thought they read this game extremely well. Knew when to step off the line. They were aware of everything going on around them. They were aggressive when they needed to be. But it was a really, really solid performance by the Union in the first half. And I don't know how many people realize that Atlanta only had 2 shots inside the box. That tells you that the Union were giving up nothing, absolutely nothing. On the 2 goals that Atlanta scored, we can go ahead and talk about those quickly. I think, the first one could have been better communication between Jacob and Oliver. And even Jim Curtin said that after the game that, yeah, those 2 should have communicated better, that the goal could have been preventable. I think what you should have seen there on that play was Oliver coming off his line, not backing out as soon as the ball gets sent in by Thiago. I think if Oliver is a little bit more aggressive there, he can come and claim that ball, whether catching it or just punching it away. Jacob doesn't jump, and it gives Daniel Rios just a free header. It's uncontested, and he scores his 5th goal against the Union. Man, guy loves scoring against the Union. Remember that hat trick he scored against the Union down in Charlotte? Or actually, he scored 4 goals, I believe, that game. I mean, that's a game that all Union fans want to wipe out of their memory. And I feel like a lot of us are probably still stuck in 2022. And we talk about, well, if the Union would have done this in this game, then that's the difference of hosting MLS Cup. Well, if the Union don't get blown out down in Charlotte, that's the difference of hosting MLS Cup and not hosting it. I mean, we can go on and on and on. But you can't have, a header uncontested in your 18-yard box. We've seen that a couple times this season. But on that play there specifically, I think Oliver needs to come for the ball. The second goal that Atlanta scores, it's unfortunate because Damion Lowe does a good job to tackle the ball off of Mascara. And then Caleb Wiley picks up the loose ball, and it's a wonderful hit. Hits off of the turf and picks up speed, and there's nothing Oliver could have done there. I am curious if that ball doesn't hit the turf, does Oliver make the save? Potentially. But even in the air, Caleb Wiley couldn't have hit that shot any better than what he did. And then I think this probably gets lost a little bit too, is that after the Union tied the game up 2-2, Atlanta had a chance with Seba Lobjanidze. His shot goes off the post. His left-footed shot goes off the post. And that could have made it 3-2 there for Atlanta. And the Union survive it. And so just really chaotic stuff in the second half with 4 goals scored total. Really fun, entertaining soccer in the second half. I think this was overall an entertaining game where, like I said, the Union probably should have had a goal in the first half. Unfortunate not to, but, sometimes that's how the game goes. But I mentioned chaos, and I guess that's exactly where we should start right here, is the chaos that was the Union's third goal not given because they ruled Mikael Uhre offsides. And that would have been Mikael's second goal of the game. He did well on his first goal, where it's a poor pass by Mikael, good first touch with his right, which then set up his left. That's a clinical goal. That's a striker's finish. And he gets a lot of hate, a lot of stick from fans online. But that's a big moment. Yeah, fans are going to be dreading it if he misses that. But as soon as he sees that this is a bad pass backwards, he's right on it. He's tracking this ball completely. He knows that he's eventually going to have a chance. He doesn't try to get cute on it. He doesn't try to get it onto his right foot. No, he shoots with his weaker foot. And it's a beautiful finish past Brad Guzan to put the Union within 1. That's now 3 goals and 6 appearances in MLS play this season for Mikael Uhre. You can see his confidence building, I think, game by game. Even when the service isn't there, you're seeing the runs. And you're seeing the Union being aware of his movement. And yes, there are some stinkers that he has. I'm not denying that. But if we can get more of this, where Mikael is just not overthinking, overcomplicating things, where he's just hitting it, more good's going to happen than not. And that whole play happens because Bedoya wins the ball off of Almada. Carranza does a good job to hold up the play, to keep the ball in bounds. And then eventually it just leads to chaos by Mikael playing the ball backwards. But that play starts with the Union winning the ball in their own half. And I show this on the goals breakdown video. When the Union win that ball back, every single player is dropped into the Union's half of the field. They have no outlet pass to go up, to go forward. And so they have to slowly build up the play. McGlynn passes to Sullivan. Sullivan goes to Glesnes. Carranza comes dropping down deep on the right-hand side. And then that's where the ball winds up. And then that's where the chaos happens. A lot of chaos in this game on the right-hand side for Atlanta United, the left-hand side. VAR goes and takes a look at what we thought would have been Mikael Uhre's second goal to make it 3-2. And John Freeman, who's the head referee, is told by VAR, hey, look, you don't need to go to the monitor. This is offsides. It's clear as day. And that would have been a big moment, a game-changing moment, if the Union would have scored that goal. Because I don't want this lost either. The Union were down by 2 goals up until the 72nd minute. In the 73rd minute, Mikael Uhre scores. 4 minutes later, Kai Wagner scores to make it 2-2. And then 2 minutes later, after Kai Wagner scores, that's when Mikael scored. We thought should have been given. But to score 3 goals in 6 minutes, that is impressive stuff right there from the Union. And it shows you right there that, look, it is clicking for this team right now, offensively and defensively. 7 straight games now the Union have went without losing. And it's also been 7 straight games that the Union have scored in. And we're seeing multiple goals scored by this team this season. They're up there with one of the highest scoring teams in MLS. I don't have the stat in front of me right now to tell you guys how many goals the Union have scored. Looking at it now, it's 14. So that puts the Union as the second highest scoring team in the Eastern Conference. They're the tied for the third most in MLS. Inter Miami has 19 goals on the season. Portland has 16. And then the Union are tied with Sporting Kansas City with 14. They're actually tied with Sporting Kansas City, now that I mention them, in a lot of categories. They're also tied with most set pieces scored, which I'm going to bring up here in a second. But got to get done talking about VAR and the non-goal given for Mikael's second. I think my whole issue with this is, yes, it's extremely tight. It's extremely close. But we absolutely need different camera angles. And Jim Curtin even said that after the game. He's like, man, it costs like $8 to install cameras at the 18-yard line to see, how close some of these calls are. And I know we're spending millions of dollars on VAR technology in every single stadium, but like, really, what's $8? And when you're watching this game at home, whether it be MLB, whether it be NBA, NFL is the best. You get like 20,000 different angles on plays. Why can't we get that in MLS? And the one thing that bothers me is we only got one angle. And how's that convincing to the people back at home? How's that convincing to these teams when you only have one angle? And I'll take it a step further. What I want, my biggest thing I want to see implemented in MLS is a tactical cam over top so you can really see the whole plays developing. That would be great for the goals breakdown video if we get something like that. That would be fantastic. I know that's a tough ask for MLS, and I know they're listening to this podcast and they're going to jot down that suggestion, but man, if we can get a tactical cam, that would be so fun. I thought we were supposed to with Messi's arrival, but I don't think that's happened yet. But not getting multiple camera angles on replays, that's really discouraging. And how can you trust fans to trust what you're seeing, to trust that, yeah, that goal's offsides? Just nothing's clear and obvious anymore. And that's exactly what Jim Curtin said after this game.
I don't want to make this about a referee thing, but again, what does clear and obvious even mean, right? What's clear and obvious to me might not be to the next human. So, yeah, a lot of millions of people watch 2.5 Men. I think it's the dumbest show ever. It's clear and obvious to me that it's terrible, but everyone watches it. So maybe I'm wrong, so we could go on and on what clear and obvious means. Again, not a referee rant at all, just more of a technology rant.
Shots fired at 2.5 Men. Like, was that necessary? I think absolutely. But I appreciate Jim for taking the pressure off the referees. And will we ever get every single call right on the field? Absolutely not. I think we can all agree with that. And yes, I know I'm asking for more camera angles, but it's like when you've already invested this much money in VAR, why not invest even more? And the more that I thought about this, it's like, man, you don't want to see all this technology added to the game because then it becomes too technological. And it's like the game loses a little bit of itself. But when you have tight calls like this, or when it happens against your team, you're all for more technology in the sport. But again, I just don't understand why you don't have more camera angles. You know you can get it. The technology is there for it. You're just not implementing it. And you just want fans to take your word for it. You want these players, you want these coaching staffs just to take the referee's word that, hey, look, trust us, bro. That plays offsides. No, we have trust issues. And this isn't just an MLS thing. This is a worldwide thing where we see blown calls all the time. Calls that are too close to call. So then we go to VAR. And yeah, I know fans hate, all the lines drawn on the monitors to see how close players are offsides or whatnot in the Premier League. And, his pinky's off, offsides. I know fans hate that. And it would be the same thing if that type of system got implemented in MLS. And then fans are going to be complaining it too when they're talking centimeters. But in this case, you absolutely want that technology. You want different angles. And so I appreciate Jim for taking the blame off of the referees because they're humans. They're going to make mistakes. But in that moment, why are we raising our flag? Isn't that the point of VAR, to go to the system when we want to review a goal? And so the Union, you guys feel a little bit hard done there. The Union messed up a 5v2 at some point too in this game in the second half. I forget. Is it after the Union tie the game up 2-2? I forget exactly when it was, and it's a bad pass by Uhre. So if you guys want to dunk on him, I'm sure some people are going to dunk on him for that missed pass. But I think he had an excellent game nonetheless. Should have had 2 goals. And if he would have had 2 goals, then he's my number 1 star, and he's earning a spot, obviously, in Team of the Matchday. But wasn't to be. Another thing I want to talk about, though. I mentioned it a little bit ago with Union being tied with Sporting Kansas City on a whole bunch of stats. They're tied with Sporting Kansas City now for 6 set pieces on the season. And you talk about controversy. This is what the Atlanta fans are complaining about, saying, is this a legal throw-in? It's not a legal throw-in by Nate Harriel. His foot's over the line. Well, actually, it is legal. As long as a part of his foot's still touching the line by the time he's throwing the ball in. And it looked like his heel was touching the line. And I know there's been an angle going around where the Atlanta fans are showing nothing's touching the line. But if we're going to complain about how close Mikael Uhre was or wasn't offsides, then why aren't we giving the same leniency here, Atlanta fans? I get it because it's a game tying goal, but you guys would be complaining if the goal that Mikael scores and make it 3-2 was given. That goes in your favor, and you want this to go in your favor. No, I get it. More angles. I literally just talked about that. But the lines person's right there. Catherine's watching this whole play. And she doesn't raise it. She doesn't see any cause for concern that it's a legal throw-in. And by the way, people that are wanting VAR to review this, VAR can't review a restart unless encroachment on a penalty kick. And so no way VAR was going to have a look at this. But to get 6 goals now in 7 matches on set pieces, that is super impressive. That is super clinical by the Union. It's a great job by Frank Leik on set pieces with this team. It's a big, big, big moment in this game to tie this game at 2 goals. And I think it's something like 4 straight games now that the Union have scored a set piece. And I've been asked by fans that don't really pay attention to the Union or by MLS, but they're like, do the Union have a shot at winning MLS Cup? They're unbeaten by 7. I see this talked about on social media. They've had comeback draws, comeback wins now. Is this the year they finally do it? And it's just way too early for me to say that. A lot of things have to go right. Players have to stay healthy. The ball bounces and whatnot during the game. So many things have to go right to win a championship. But the one thing I will say, and the one thing that I have said to people, is you're seeing the Union do a lot of little things right. And yes, we're complaining about how the Union were defensively early on in the season, but you know what? They were still finding ways to score. Still finding ways to score. And good teams find ways to put the ball in the back of the net. And through 7 games, the Union have scored in every single one of those. You've got to get goals off of restarts, and the Union have been doing that. You've got to defend restarts well. The Union have been doing that. You might not get a lot of chances. You might not create a lot of chances, but your chances that you do create, you got to put the ball in the back of the net. And the Union have been doing that. And so I know we're 7 games into the season, 27 more games to go, plus playoffs. But if the Union can carry this on throughout the season, it's hard not to get excited. It's hard not to say that, yeah, they're one of the favorites for MLS Cup. And so I don't want to put too much stock into that. But we're seeing a lot of good right now for the Union. And this is a whole different story, if the Union don't have a couple wins at this point in the season. If all 7 of these games are draws, then I think people are complaining a little bit worried that the Union don't know how to win games. But because they have 3 wins, they have a come-from-behind victory. They have 2 come-from-behind draws. Fans are feeling good about themselves. This team's feeling good about themselves. And so I don't want to say that, yeah, the Union winning MLS Cup way too early. But they're doing a lot of things right, a lot of little things right that give you that hope. And it's the hope that kills you. We all know from 2022. So 6 set-piece goals on the year, a right-footed strike by Kai Wagner to get his first goal of the season. And who was at blame for that goal again? Mikael, the player who gave away the first goal, doesn't close down Kai Wagner quick enough. And the Union capitalized on that. But I have 2 more points that I want to bring up and get to before we end the podcast. We're definitely not getting to Blunder of the Week. Sorry, guys, for that. For everybody who was looking forward to that. It was the way the Union lined up in this game that was maybe a little bit surprising. Damion Lowe returns to the starting lineup, replacing Jack Elliott. We see Alejandro Bedoya return to the lineup, which was only his second start of the season, his first since Portland. We're talking about in league, not overall. This was also the first time that we've seen the pairing of Jacob Glesnes and Damion Lowe since that 6-0 Pachuca loss. I think we saw a lot of good between Damion and Jacob. And I know maybe some of you guys have read my latest article on Substack, and I'm not trying to read word for word of what I said because I want to save the article for you guys to read. But yeah, I am bringing up a lot of points that I brought up in that article. But, in audio format, I can actually expand on those thoughts a little bit more than going on a rant by typing. I think it translates better through audio than it does reading it, at least in my opinion. The Union weren't going to risk playing Mikael Uhre, who missed out on Nashville because of a foot injury. He just started training fully on Friday, and so it made sense that, all right, you keep him off the turf for the time being in Atlanta. You can play Quinn Sullivan up top, and that's exactly what they did. But the player I felt bad for was Jack Elliott, because he had played the previous 5 league matches at center backs. He earned Team of the Matchday honors for his performance against Minnesota during Matchday 7. It seemed like Jack Elliott was getting back to his old form we've seen the last couple of years. It seems like him and Jacob Glesnes were getting back that chemistry that had made them 2 of the best center backs in MLS. And so your mind starts to wonder, okay, what goes into the thought of starting Damion over Jack Elliott after he's been playing well? Obviously, you're going to say that training plays a part of it. The opponent plays a part of it. But having those conversations with Jack Elliott, Damion Lowe, Jacob Glesnes, week in, week out, determining who's going to start, who's going to sit. And this is what Jim Curtin had to say on those conversations.
Yeah, look, I thought, and I talked with Jack Elliott, and he was very professional about it. It's one of the few times in my coaching career where, I don't really have an answer to exactly why he was the one that was chosen to get a rest. The one thing is maybe in a game against Atlanta where it turns into a track meet a bit, Damien's ability to put out some fires and win those kind of crazy duels was something that we decided on. Again, Jack's going to start again for us probably in the next game. So I want these guys all on their toes already when they're called upon. But yeah, it's the first time I have to really look at a player and say, this isn't even fair, Jack. You know what I mean? So it's just we can only play with 2 this week. We think that's the way to go against the personnel that Atlanta has. So a tough decision goes against you, all right? Just like some have gone against Jacob this year, some have gone against Damion in certain instances. And now, every week they got to be ready to go. We're obviously going to miss Damion for a stretch at Copa America. So the idea of keeping them all fresh, all ready to go for the most important part of the season, which is the end, is something that I'll just say we learned a little bit about last year. I think I maybe drove Jacob into the ground, and maybe that led to a surgery. So we'll be a little bit smarter about how we manage the minutes, but it certainly wasn't performance-based. Jack's been playing amazing for us. So is Jacob now in recent weeks, and Damion as well. So this is a good problem for a coach to have, and they're going to share the load until we get to the Copa America, and then we'll regroup and assess things and go from there.
Yeah, and I think, number one, hearing Jim say, I take some of the blame for putting Jacob through the ground last year, starting him week in, week out. And maybe it did lead to Jacob needing to get surgery on his groin. Maybe it didn't. But as a coach, and Jim Curtin's been saying this week in, week out, is that he believes that they have the 3 best center backs in the league, or 3 of the best. And if that's the case, then yeah, you want to see more rotation. You don't want to see one player starting every single game while you rotate the other 2, or starting the same 2, because you want to keep them fresh, as he said. And so I looked up the numbers, and for the most part, it is pretty consistent in rotating minutes. The Union have played 11 games in all competitions so far this year. Jacob Glesnes has played in 8 of those 11, playing 750 minutes. Damion Lowe and Jack Elliott have both played 7 games apiece. Damion Lowe has played 570 minutes, and Jack Elliott's played 530. And so you look at that and say, maybe, oh man, Jacob's playing way too many more minutes than the other two guys. Well, he's also played one more game, and don't forget, one of those games, the Union went into extra time in the CONCACAF Champions Cup against Saprissa. And so that adds extra minutes to your legs. But having this rotation, keeping things fresh, I agree with that approach 100%. But then on the flip side, the number one thing you want to do as a coach is shore up your spine. Your center backs, your defensive midfielder, your goalkeeper. And so you don't really like to rotate those players, and Jim Curtin said just that in the past. But if you do believe that you have center backs that are as good as you say they are, then there shouldn't be much of a difference, much of a drop-off if you just rotate those guys in. And so I think, we saw both center backs in this game against Atlanta, and Damion and Jacob Glesnes just play excellent. The positioning was great. They timed when to come off the line well and attack the ball, being aggressive when they needed to be. Reading the game, their positioning, like I said, was just excellent. Always being aware of the attackers around them, knowing when exactly to go and win this ball. Didn't get beat much. Jacob Glesnes, I think, was dribbled by 2 times, but other than that, no calls for concern. He had 3 tackles won, I believe, in this game. And this is the way that the Union center backs play. They play aggressively, all 3 of them. And I get why the Union played Damion Lowe when this game, like Jim said, was going to be a track meet, end-to-end stuff. Atlanta was going to be throwing multiple players for it. You want to have some speed back there in defense. And out of your 3 center backs, Damion Lowe is your fastest out of all of them. So it makes sense that Damion got the start in this game, and he played terrific. One of my 3 stars on the night. But you do feel bad for Jack because, like Jim said, it's not been a performance issue. He's been playing great, especially the last couple weeks. Like I said, it seems like his chemistry with Jacob Glesnes was coming back. It seems like Jack was getting back to his old form. But it's going to depend on opponent, keeping things fresh, and we'll see once the Copa America ends, will Jim Curtin start playing his more preferred center back pairing, or will he change things up and continue to keep things fresh? We shall see. But the last soundbite I want to play is Jim Curtin on how the defense played with Oliver Zemla in net compared to Andre Blake, because if you guys missed it, if you weren't watching the game, Andre Blake injured yet again, another groin injury. This is his 4th overall, his 2nd this season. Missed 3 games at the beginning of the year because he got hurt in the first leg down in Saprissa. Oliver Zemla came in and has played a lot more, I think, than he would have thought he would have played. And you look at Andre Blake getting that concussion against Minnesota United. So Oliver has to come off the bench for that game. Comes off the bench this game because Andre pulls up short on a goal kick. And like I said at the very beginning, who would have thought that the Union's best player or best signing this season would have been a backup goalkeeper in Oliver Zemla? It's been huge. It's been huge for the Union when called upon. But I think, should questions start to be asked that you look at Andre Blake's injury history the last couple of years? Groin, concussion, groin, COVID, groin, hand injury, meniscus injury. But that groin's been acting up since 2019. And I'll never forget, that's the first year that I started going to Union games. And you could tell in the playoff win against New York Red Bulls that Andre Blake wasn't healthy. He dealt with a groin injury back in April or May of 2019, I believe it was. And that's when we got to see Matt Freese make his debut, and we're like, hey, we actually have something here in a backup goalkeeper. But then Andre just wasn't moving as well as he was in that playoff game against New York Red Bulls, and the Union find a way to win because of the Marco Fabian miracle goal, the miracle cross. But just Andre's been a little bit unfortunate, but I do think part of it is he's 33 years old, will be 34 in November. As a goalkeeper, you're constantly throwing yourself on the ground. Andre Blake is constantly in the top 5, the top 10 for sure, in saves every single year. He's facing a lot of shots. And so that's a lot of wear and tear on your body. And I know goalkeepers can last forever. The life expectancy of a goalie can go into in their 40s. But all these nagging injuries, it does make you wonder, are we starting to see the end of Andre Blake? You do wonder. When does Andre feel like it's time to call it quits? Is it after 2026 in hopes that Jamaica makes it to the World Cup? Potentially. And I think that's something that Union fans really haven't thought about, is when the end's going to be here for Andre Blake, and it's going to be a sad day when he does retire. But I do think it's coming a lot quicker than what fans realize. And the more and more injuries we see to Andre, I think that makes the decision a little bit easier for him. It's like, okay, how much more do I want to put my body through this? If he wins MLS Cup, wins a couple more trophies with the Union, goes to the World Cup with Jamaica, maybe he decides that, yep, I'm going to call it a career here. And you can't say that he had a bad career. And so I think it is a future that the Union need to start preparing for. Obviously, they have a backup goalkeeper with Union 2 and Andrew Rick, who looks to be the future. Oliver Zemler, only 25 years old. You can see him staying around in Philadelphia for a long time, potentially taking over for Andre Blake. He's had to take over a couple times this season. Long ran again there, but I asked Jim Curtin, last clip we're here of the night is there a difference with the way that the defense plays with Oliver in net compared to Andre Blake? Does your game plan get thrown out of the window once Andre goes down? And this is what Jim had to say.
Well, this isn't anything to do with Oliver. It's not Oliver's fault that Andre's the best goalkeeper this league's had. You know what I mean? So that's not on him. So, of course you're going to play a little more, I'll just say risk. You're willing to take a little more risk when Andre's behind you, right? So it does change things a bit. Oliver's come in now several times this year and done a great job for us, and we'll need that to continue. But he's still a young goalkeeper that's going to get better and better with time, right? These are the first times he's playing at this high of a level, right? I'm not disregarding college or the USL, but this is a level up, right? This is a national TV game against a really good attacking Atlanta team where you're out there and there's nowhere to hide. And he did a good job. Could him and Jacob maybe communicate a little better on the first goal and one of them maybe come for it? Yeah, I think we would agree with that. Would he want maybe that second one back? But that's still, you watch it and it's actually hit from a ways out, but it picks up some speed as it hits the turf. So he's going to learn in all these moments. It's not easy to go out there as a goalkeeper, as a sub. Nothing good can happen for him, right? Nobody's going to remember much of anything that he does unless it's a mistake. So he did a good job. And our team, after going down 2 goals, showed a lot of heart to get the goals back. And hopefully Andre's not out too long. And Oliver, we know, is more than capable of doing the job in his absence.
Yeah, that's one thing. I mean, we've seen Oliver now in 7 games this season for the Union. It's crazy. 6 in MLS, 1 in CONCACAF Champions Cup. He's been thrown into it. And he's done well when called upon. And he only gets better and better. And we all figured, okay, we're going to see Oliver a lot during Copa America in the summertime, but not at the beginning of the season. But don't let it get lost either that Thiago Almada had a chance to win this game late on for Atlanta, and Oliver comes up with a save. It's a big save, a comfortable save nonetheless, but when you're in a stadium that has 40,000 plus people, a hostile environment, can be a little bit intimidating. And Oliver did well coming off the bench and making a great save late on in this game. And Jim never gave an update on how long Andre will be out. He's hopeful that with this week being the bye week for the Union, that he can just recover and be good to go, and they'll get some tests done and find out the extent of the injury. But at least the Union have a good, serviceable backup goalkeeper in Oliver Zemla. And so, last point that we'll get to is the 3 stars. Start with number 3 on the night, Jacob Glesnes. 3 out of 3 tackles won, 1 block, 6 clearances. 4 of those were headed, 1 ball recovery, and he was dribbled by 2 times. If he wasn't dribbled by twice, I think I would put him up higher than number 2, Damion Lowe. 1 tackle won, 2 blocks, 8 clearances, 4 of those headers, 1 interception, 5 ball recoveries. But like I said, just those 2 play really, really well. They're understanding when to be aggressive, winning balls back, whether it be tackling, intercepting, blocking shots. Both of them played extremely well. They had good chemistry between each other. And you love to see it. You love to see it from Damion, who hasn't started a lot in MLS play. Last start in MLS, I believe it was against Austin. Or with a single center back, I should say. But he did well. And then number 1 on the night, Kai Wagner. 1 goal, 2 chances created, 1 out of 1 tackles won, 2 blocks, 1 interceptions, 3 ball recoveries. And like we mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, because of that performance, it earned him a spot in Team of the Matchday. And there you have it for my 3 stars on the night. So if you guys can't tell, getting a little bit antsy. And that's because it's going on 8:30 here tonight, recording this podcast Monday night, sorry. Tuesday is the big day for me. And so by the time that all you guys are listening to this podcast, I'll be out there fishing first time this season on the kayak. Hopefully I can get a couple bass, some crappie. Honestly, I'll take anything. Just being out on the water, can't wait. Beautiful day tomorrow. And so I know you're listening to this podcast solely. How many bass do you think I'm going to catch? Let me know. Hit me up on Twitter. Just at me on Twitter and say, all right, these are my predictions for you. And I'll take a look whenever you listen to this podcast and let you know if you're right or wrong. Or if any of you guys want to go ahead and leave predictions, how you guys think I'm going to do tomorrow, sure, go ahead and do that. I hope I don't get skunked. That's my biggest fear is, going out first time, beautiful weather, beautiful conditions. Don't want to get skunked. So if I can catch like 3 bass, some crappie, white perch, I'll be happy. Or 1 5-pound bass, I'd be happy. I would love to catch a snakehead or snakeheads, but I'm a realist. I don't see that happening, but I would love for that to be the case. But enough fishing talk. If you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow @FreeKickPod, wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick. Check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/FreeKickPod. Check out the Substack, thefreekick.substack.com. And I think that's everything, right? Wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick. Because I know some of you guys are listening to the episodes on Substack, but if you guys don't want to listen on there, you can find it on Google or Google Podcasts. I don't think it's a thing anymore either. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you guys get your podcasts now. You can also listen there or continue listening on Substack, whatever you guys prefer. But we'll see. We'll see what the plans are the rest of the week. Whether or not we do another podcast, we shall see. My plan is to do maybe a featured article. Have something that I was working on. So we'll see if I get around to that. Going fishing twice this week, so it's all time depending. Want to get something written for you guys, featured article, because right now all you guys are getting is game previews and game reviews. So I feel like you guys are due for a featured article. But with that said, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.